welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm here as always with Tom Roberts from Riff Raff.
Good morning.
Good morning. And this is going to go up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. People are going to be super confused. When we're going to talk about a few things today, it's been a couple of weeks since we last recorded. I've been gone forever, it seems. And in fact, it's been so bad with traveling that I didn't have to go anywhere this past weekend or necessarily this week. And I feel like anxiety, like leftover, like residual anxiety of like I'm supposed to be on a train somewhere. I'm supposed to be doing some specific thing. But anyways, we're back. We're going to talk about the Best Translated Book Award finalists, which are announced this morning, Tuesday, May 15th. And we'll go through those. I want to talk about the Nobel Prize stuff because it's fun. Maybe about this Barnes & Noble op-ed piece, other stuff, whatever comes up, other books, so on and so forth. So do you have anything you want to say before we start in on the Best Translated Book Award?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we'll read through those in a second. Before we do, so there's 10 fiction books, 6 poetry, and the winners for both these categories are going to be announced during the New York Writes Fair, which is on Thursday, May 31st. There will be a panel that starts at 4:30 called I keep forgetting what it's called. It's something like the State of Translation Today or something like that, A Decade of Growth. And it has Stephen Sparks on there, Gabrielle Page-Fort from Amazon, Elizabeth Jacquette from Alta, who's also a translator, and Marlene Seegers, who is a agent and representative for a lot of foreign publishers and foreign agencies. That's going to start at 4:30. It'll end at 5:15, and we'll do the announcement immediately thereafter. And there will be some sort of like little mini reception, and then I'm sure we'll figure out a way to move everyone that attends over to the New Directions party. That's that night, I believe. Or to a different bar or whatever. If you're going to Book Expo, you automatically can get in for free to the New York Writes Fair. They're connected. They're now the same. They're working as the same in tandem to one another. Where the right section of Book Expo is now the New York Writes Fair. Everything else is located over at the Javits Center at Book Expo. But you can get in and see that. I don't know if the general public will be able to get in that easily, but we might be able to make some exceptions. If you are a general public person and want to come to the event specifically, the announcement, let me know. Just email me and we'll figure it out. Other than that, what's that?
Where exactly is this Writes Fair?
It's down the road. I knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't have that part open. It's like the Metropolitan.
But it's near the Javits Center.
Yes, it's not that far away. It's like I think they're going to have some sort of buses running. I might be making that part up, but I feel like they're going to have some sort of transportation between the two if need be. But it is at the Metropolitan Pavilion on West 18th Street.
Okay.
It's not right there, but it's pretty close.
Right.
And it's like a big hotel, I believe. And it's the first time that they're doing the New York Writes Fair. It's a lot of agents I'm meeting with that are there. It's the agenting and rights part of Book Expo is just all sectioned off. Which we could talk about Book Expo at the end of this too, because I just finally read like what their new vision for it is, and it's interesting, I suppose.
It is interesting. I keep getting emails from the various organizations that sponsor Book Expo. And now as a bookseller back in this world, being invited to different things and sort of shared information in a different way. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I'll bet. I used to be press for them forever. I was like a press member, so I'd get a lot of that stuff too, and it was so much more interesting. Now that I'm like just a nobody, I get nothing. I don't even have a pass.
So they're also really trying to rebrand it and all of that sort of stuff, which. Maybe not rebrand, but reconfigure.
Yeah.
The way it's being run.
The word they keep using is reimagine.
Reimagine. Interesting. It seems like it's less imagined. They did too much imagining over the years, and now they're trying to scale back the imagine.
Although it's got, yeah. Well, let's come back to that. 'Cause there's a lot to say about it. So you want to jump in and let's do poetry first. Since people listening, I mean, people have probably seen these lists by now, but these are the poetry we're going to have the least amount of comments on. So do you want to start reading them?
Sure. We're going with the same document. So,
Yeah.
Hackers by Asa Berg, translated from the Swedish by, oh, geez, Johannes Goransson. This book is from Sweden, published by Black Ocean Press.
I've read a couple other Berg books, and I really like them. They're like gross and physical and interesting. So that's one that I would stump for, I suppose. Just based, I haven't read this one because I don't think we have it in the office, or if we do, it's somewhere buried. But um, next one is Paraguayan Sea by Wilson Bueno, translated from the Portunhol and Guarani to Franglish and Guarani by Aaron Moore. It's from Brazil and it's from Netboat Books, which I wish I had a copy of this somewhere. I think because I'm curious as to what the translation is because there's so many languages involved, and to translate it to Franglish and Guarani sounds like a pretty experimental choice.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you what Emma had to say about Emma, who's a judge on this. Um, could not remember, which might mean that she was not particularly enamored with it, but might also mean I wasn't paying attention. I don't know.
these these two options seem equally likely.
Yes. Look, we spend all day talking about books or
Yep.
alcohol. It all sort of washes over at a certain point.
There's 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 a moment in time where you listen without hearing.
Right, exactly.
uh,
Um, Next up, Third Millennium Heart by Ursula. Any idea there?
Anjakar? And
Un,
wait,
un, un, there's just too many syllables
Angier?
for each
I'm not
other.
sure. Yeah.
Anjer Olsen, translated from the Danish by our friend Katrine Bogard Jensen. Books from Denmark, published by Broken Dimanche Press, who I do not know.
They've been doing translations for a while. They're pretty like they're small, like edgy press. They do interesting stuff, and I think this was Broken Dimanche in collaboration with Action Books. Maybe there's like two presses that
Oh,
were involved in making this book happen. I think
okay.
they get the credit for it. This is a side note, but I was at last week. I was on a panel for Icelandic. It was like a seminar on the Icelandic language and culture and whatnot. It was mostly about language though, and it was mostly about the problems that they have with preserving the language at a time when everyone speaks English, especially in relation to devices. Like you can't speak to Siri in Icelandic and have Siri respond. And so all the interactions that like children face with technology are all done in English. And I guess the president was there, the president of Iceland, and he had a meeting with Microsoft about voice recognition issues, blah blah blah. And they were like, yeah, we can conceivably be able to make these devices so that they can understand Icelandic. We could do it for basically every language except for Danish. Danish is just like oop oop. That's how he said it, and I think that's kind of amazing. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, I don't know how true that is, but I like that the president of Iceland is taking various shots at the Danish language, just like and sort of mocking it, which was fun. He also studied Danish and whatever, so I think it's like all in good humor. But the way that Swedes and Nords probably take shots at each other, or Finns. But okay, next up, Spiral Staircase by Harato Renkichi, translated from the Japanese by Shosugita. This is from Japan and published by Ugly Duckling Press. And this looks like this is a beautiful cover. This is one of my favorite covers that for the poetry ones. And I always like Ugly Duckling books, so this is a front runner, I think, too.
It is a beautiful book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Absolutely, yes. Yes, they do good things. The only thing, and this is sort of, this is what you get with Ugly Duckling, I suppose. Their books, like they do a short print run and then they're gone. You're never going to see them again.
Yeah.
It's limited copies out there in the world. Like even stuff from 2 years ago, we have customers who look for something and it's just like I can't get it. I'm really sorry. Like
It's always a
it's
good
just
idea for like if you have the opportunity at the beginning of the year to subscribe to them before they sell out. If you like Ugly Duckling, you should do that
yeah.
as an individual.
I'm not going to tell my customers to do
I
that,
know you
but
can't tell your customers to do that. Fair enough, but
um, I'm up.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Directions for Use by Anna Ristovic, translated from the Serbian by Stephen Teref and Maja Teref. I assume they're a couple, perhaps.
I think so.
Uh, from Serbia by Zephyr Press.
Zephyr's always on here too.
Yep.
I forget. I just did all the stats on like what publishers have done the most translations for poetry over the past 10 years, and I forget. But Zephyr's like number 2 maybe, and Ugly Duckling was maybe 3. And speaking of Ugly Duckling, the last book is Before Lyricism by Eleni Bakalo, translated from the Greek by Karen Emmerich. The author's from Greece, and this is from Ugly Duckling Press as well. I love Karen Emmerich, so I remember this one sounds really interesting based on the Why This Book Should Win post, which I believe Emma did.
Yes, she's a fan of this. Is this the one that's like prose poetry?
Maybe.
Can't remember.
I'll have to look it up. There's so many. I read all these things came in at the end because you know, I don't know. People don't have time and they wait till the last minute to really like do their Why This Should Win posts. I think I posted 7 of them yesterday, so everything's blended together. They're like 6 book length poems. That they are like poems. They aren't like prose looking.
Okay. There's definitely one in here where she, definitely had a debate about, is this poetry, is this prose?
Was that maybe astroecology? Or you think it's one of the shortlist ones?
I thought it was one of the ones that ended up on the short list, but I could be wrong. Might have been one of the longer ones from the long list.
Who do you think's a winner with no inside knowledge?
Well, I do have inside knowledge. So I think it's going to come down to Spiral Staircase and Third Millennium Heart.
Interesting. Okay. One thing I didn't point out, but that we read through this, and if you're paying attention, you notice there's no duplicated languages or countries.
Oh, yes.
Which is, true. I don't know that that's ever happened before, but it stood out to me as I was typing everything in that there's like, usually there's like X number of, French books or Swedish, and there's no French at all, is there?
No. That's a weird one. Although
unless Franglish is
makes up for it.
Yeah, very true. So let's switch over to fiction then. And you can start so I can get our hard to pronounce one. Although this seems no easier to me. So good.
Suzanne by Anais Barbeau-Lavalette, translated from the French by Rhonda Mullins. This is from Canada, published by Coach House. So this would be a French-Canadian book.
Yep, French-Canadian. We have to put Canada because that's I don't know, whatever.
You couldn't just put Quebec?
I could put Quebec, but it's not in the database that way because the database won't acknowledge, PW won't acknowledge Quebec as a country. And they use like a standardized country thing that's for other business reasons. So like there's no Catalonia either, which obviously, but yeah, both of them are like that. So I could put Quebec, but it's kind of fun to put Canada, Quebec's part of Canada.
I mean, yes, but whatever. This is a debate for another time, I suppose.
I mean, if the person asked for it, I'd change it because we do have Taiwan.
Right.
But I was just copying it out of the database for now. Make sure everything's consistent. There was a different problem with that caused me to do it this way as well, where someone was complaining about the way that an author was designated. So by taking a hard line on one, I had to do it on the other too. Second book. I don't know anything about Suzanne. We did a post about it yesterday, but I don't know very much about it. It's like semi-historical novel about Ottawa, I believe, in like a grandmother. But it's a book that I like Coach House a lot, but that's one that sort of slipped by me.
Yes, same here. We ordered a copy for the store, thinking one of us would read it sometime soon, and then a customer bought it.
Yeah.
So
that's a plus.
We'll reorder it and give it another try.
Okay. Up next is Thomas Jansson bestseller by Gudberger Bergson, translated from the Icelandic by Lytton Smith. Authors from Iceland, and this is one of the open letter books. I don't know that this book can win, but I'm glad that it's getting recognition because this is a triumph of translation. Like it's like translating a Ulysses to level of like complexity in terms of language and in terms of like wordplay and things that are going on within it, and overall structures. And Lytton spent a lot of time working on this book, and it's a a monument to translation. I'm glad that he's getting some acknowledgement for it. Even though I know that, I mean, this is one of the real reasons that we started that 2 month review podcast, to try and like give people some place to go if you start reading this, because when you start reading it, you understand a certain level of it, and then just be like, I don't know what all this rest of this is. Like, I need someone to help explain this to me.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of translations that I think a lot of people assume this prize is set up for. But
Yeah, the non-commercial yet very like artistically and translator heavy.
right.
Yeah.
That said, it might tip the scale a little bit too far to win, like you said. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you did, it depends on what the judges value.
Right, right. I don't know who the judges are this year.
Two, three of them I've never met before, and I don't. I only know via email, because we try to get like more readers and less like some industry people, some book selling people, and then some people who are like just passionate readers. So like Adam Hetherington, Jeremy Kang, they're people that aren't part of our, or they're part of our world, but they're not part of our like inner circle, I suppose.
Okay, like not publishing experienced people.
Right. They're not people being invited to the New Directions party or the like Winter Institute special dinners.
Right.
Yeah.
Up next, Compass by Matthias Heinard, translated from the French by Charlotte Mandel. Author is French, and this is from New Directions.
I have lots of interesting things to say about this real
I'm
quick.
sure you do.
No, not bad.
Oh, I don't think this book is going to win, but
Really? Okay, so why don't you think it's going to win?
I mean, you know probably better than I do. I don't think this is his best book.
Interesting.
I also think, I mean, personally, I found this book boring, but that's just me. I don't know. Do you think it's going to win?
I think it's one of the 3, 4 top ones for sure. So I use this book in my class, and as a way of getting past other things in my life, and I really enjoyed it. There's parts of it that I think I can see why you say it's boring, or there's parts that are like a little bit long and tedious. But I think what really opened up was talking about it in class, and it sort of blew everyone's mind, because a lot of people were convinced like that the book was like, because it was using the term Orientalism all the time, that it was basically unacceptable, like that you can't use the word Orientalism, and talking about it is basically racist. And the whole book is sort of in that trapping of like, how do you talk about the other, and the fact that we've talked about the other in these ways, and how do you deal with this idea. And the student who had to give the presentation on that had finished it the night before, and like his presentation, because each student had to present one of the books. His presentation was it was amazing, because he's like, his mind was broken, and he's trying to work through like all these layers of complexity with the book, like in real time in our class, after like 2 hours of sleep after finishing this thing. So it was an amazing performance. And then as our class voted on like which book should win their prize, and the book that won was Impossible Fairy Tale by Han Yuzhu. But individually, when I got all their papers I have to grade this afternoon, I believe that the one that won, where individually they get to write about which book they think should have won, regardless of what the class decided on. And I think the majority picked Compass. I think it was a book that like really, like, as they unpacked and talked about it more, and like it sat with them, it grew in stature and in like their appreciation of it. But also, I really like Charlotte talked to my class, and she's wonderful. And I really like that Charlotte Mandel is a dedicated baseball fan. That she watches baseball, like, and every night she tweets about baseball. There's like a group of people. I really appreciate that, and it gets a bonus point in my world for that.
I mean, I can appreciate all of what you're saying about the book, and I will say that everyone I know who loves this book like loves it passionately.
Yeah.
Like there are very few people who just read it, enjoyed it, and say, yeah, it's fine. It's always like this deep passion, and it stays with them, like you're saying, and they sort of turn it over in their minds over and over.
Yeah.
For me, it's just, yeah, those tedious parts are just, I don't know. My mind has not been in a place to really appreciate those kind of things.
I also had two of my students were music students from the Eastman School, so they knew all the musical references, like
Okay.
Cold, which I did not. And I know
Yeah.
that there was a playlist someone put together online where you could listen to the things that are being referenced, but that was part like there's so many layers. I mean, that's an impressive translation thing too, though. There's so many layers of language that are at play in this, like the music language, the scholarly language. It's pretty. I mean, it's curious.
Yeah. I mean, especially just as a sort of aside here, before we opened, Emma and I were doing just like freelance translation stuff for a French website, and a lot of it was these like tutorials for music.
Oh
And
wow.
so I'm reading through these things where it's like basically guitar lessons, piano lessons, whatever, and you're reading it, and like the in French at least, like the words make sense on you know a basic level, but you know that they're being used in a musical terminology sort of framework.
Hmm.
So we do all this looking up of what these terms meant in a musicology setting.
Right.
And it's one of these specific sort of subsets of a language is like how do people talk about music? Because think about it, so many of the words that we use for even in English for all of the parts of a piano or the parts of a guitar or what you're doing, the action are basically verbs or nouns that we use in other parts of life
Yeah.
that are just borrowed for the music thing. And so we might know them in English, but they clearly are not literal translations into the French, and so they use a different set of also borrowed words. It's just interesting to like the subset of language that operates that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's really cool.
It's a lot of work, that's
Oh
for
yeah, I
sure.
can imagine. That part's not as cool, I suppose.
We
And
got off the rails here.
yep, off the rails. Okay, next one. Invented Part by Rodrigo Frazan. Translated from the Spanish by Will Vanderheiden. He's from Argentina. And this is the other one of our books, open letter title. Frazan's my favorite. I've been touring with him for weeks. I love that guy. He's great. He's so smart. I cannot wait for the second and third parts of this trilogy to come out. But and he has a new book out now. This one I'm biased towards, so I'm not going to say any more.
Yeah, I feel like we've said a lot. To me, this is the favorite to win. I feel like if we're gonna, I mean, maybe Litton's translation sort of competes with this one, but I feel like Will's translation here is just phenomenal, and the book itself sort of operates in such a complex, beautiful, but also fun sort of way that
Yeah.
this definitely has a good chance.
He's doing something on another level, man.
Yeah,
It's his mind is incredible. He's also just read everything. I wish you guys could have met when he was here. Next time he comes, you guys should hang out.
yeah. I mean, we're doing events now, so start sending people our way.
I will. We don't have anyone until the fall, but you'll get Dubravka Ugrechik if you'd like her.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not doing events in the summer. That
Yeah,
just seems like a bad idea. So,
definitely. And there we.
where are we? Okay, Return to the Dark Valley by Santiago Gamboa, translated from Spanish by Howard Curtis. Author is Colombian, and this is from Europa Editions.
Yeah,
Uh,
you like this book, don't you? Or
I like this author. I haven't read this book.
oh, okay, okay.
I read his last one and really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little surprised that it's on this list.
Okay, so there's two Spanish books, right? Just two, because no, three. Um, I think and that's the language that's most translated or
Yeah,
on the list as usual.
yeah.
Um, or there's three French as well. But I thought of the Spanish, if there were three, I would have guessed that one of like Fever Dream would have made it. Um, Even though I'm not a personal fan of that book, I think a lot of other people are. But yes, I'm a little surprised that this made it too. But more power to him. I read his first book and I thought it was pretty good, but like I haven't been able to keep up.
Yeah, they're coming out fast and furious here. This one is quite long as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Although their books read really fast, I appreciate that.
Yeah, they do. I agree. I really thought Fever Dream would be on this list.
Yeah, there's
Instead of,
one other book that everyone keeps referencing that at Savage Theories maybe not as much, but I thought one of the two female Spanish writers would make it one of the three, or two of the three, I guess. That's giving away a hint for later, but
yeah,
anyways. Okay, so next one, Old Rendering Plant by Wolfgang Hilbig, translated from the German by Isabel Fargo Kohl. It's from Germany, East Germany, and published by Two Lines. I've only read two of his books. Two Lines is pumping him out as well. They read two of his books back when and used them in a class. And I really enjoyed them. They're like sort of paranoid, intellectual uh, writing. But this book won the Helen and Kurt Wolff Translators Prize just like last week. So it's maybe got more momentum and more of a chance than one might initially think, just because I don't know how many people are super familiar with Hilbig, but there's something there, and I've always really liked him. I look forward to reading this book when I have a chance too.
I have not read him. I don't know anything about this book in particular. I don't. This is all new to me. So
He kind of seems like someone you would like, although maybe a
yeah,
little too cold.
we'll see. I have to
Yeah.
pick it up. Up next, I Am the Brother of XX by Fleur Jaeggy, translated from the Italian by Jeannie Aldehef. Authors from Switzerland, published also New Directions.
Are you a fan of her?
No, not particularly.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
This book got a lot of play though.
Yeah, people love her. And I get why people love her. The same way that I understand why people love The Spectre. It's just not a thing that I enjoy reading.
I only read this and the other one that came out this year that they did at the same time, Three Possible Lives. And I was pretty tepid about it too. It's a little too stylized and like clean for me. But and the tone was so similar throughout this whole book. But it made me curious to read one of her novels. Because
Yeah,
reading like 40 short stories that are all basically the same sort of atmosphere or like precision of the language, I got lost pretty quickly and was like, I can't pay attention to what's what here. I don't read short stories very well as a reader anyways, and this is not helping.
yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. Next one, My Heart Hemmed In by Marie Ndiaye, translated from the French by Jordan Stump, from France, published by Two Lines. She is on here every single book.
That is true.
One of these times she's going to win.
Maybe this is the time.
How many more books of hers are in the works? Do you know? 'Cause I don't know how many were. Because there's the old ones. Because there used to be like Rose Carp was published by Nebraska back in like 2001 or something like that. So I know that
Which is
she's.
the worst cover in the history of covers.
It's not good. It's definitely
No.
not good. But like she must have a ton of backlist and is still writing. So there must be like
I
even
like
more in the pipeline, right?
I'm just trying to remember how many we had at Albertine. I would say we had like 6 or 7 books of
Oh.
hers in French. I mean, so I feel like the English might have caught up by now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Maybe I don't know. I'm
Uh,
just
not.
guessing here.
There's 13 books listed on her Wikipedia page.
Wow.
Some of them are short story collections. Yeah, no, there's a ton of them. There's even one that was translated in English as Among Family, published by Angela Royale Publishing in 1997. All of that is new to me. But yeah, there's a number of them that they could. There's a new one. The newest one's from 2016, I guess. And that one
Yeah,
hasn't been
these first
translated.
3 from the '80s we never had at
Yeah.
Albertine. But starting with the other ones, yeah, now I'm trying to remember which of these are actually in English. Definitely that.
There's a lot in English.
So, yeah, yeah, they're
She's someone I need to just take a summer and read bunches of her books, I think.
Emma loves her. Emma absolutely adores her. Thinks she's
Yeah.
doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Um, I've only ever read, God, the first one that Two Lines did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Auto Portrait in Green. Is that the first one they did?
No, I thought they did one before Portrait in Green. Yeah, they did All My Friends.
Oh, right. Okay. I haven't read that one.
Self Portrait in Green sounds like the one I'd like the most.
Yeah, probably.
I read Rose Carp way back when, but I remember so little of that book. I just remember the new Wisconsin, Nebraska did it. You're up.
I'm up. August by Romina Paula. Translated from the Spanish by Jennifer Croft. Authors from Argentina. This is from the Feminist Press.
I really like Jennifer Croft. I don't know that I like this book though. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a little too. There's too many pop like culture, contemporary sort of like things that get dropped in there. That I don't know. I didn't like the voice of this as much as I wanted to. But I think
Interesting.
Jennifer Croft's crazy talented. I mean, she comes out with 2 books in a year. One's translated from Spanish and one from Polish, and both they're like high level writers. It's a pretty it's a
Yeah,
pretty
that's
impressive
impressive.
thing. Have you guys done well with this book, or
Um, no, I don't know. Didn't I think we sold like a couple copies, maybe. It
I,
hasn't really flown. I don't think the plot description does it for people.
yeah, that's probably true. There is like if you start reading it, you can tell that there's a good audience for this book. I don't think I'm that audience.
Right.
And then the last one is Remains of Life by Wu He, translated from the Chinese by Michael Berry, authors from Taiwan, and the book is published by Columbia University Press. And this is one of the other ones that sounds really intriguing to me, but I just haven't read it yet. I don't know that we ever got a copy of this in the office, or if we did, we sent it out for review.
I am definitely not familiar with this book. But that is not surprising. We don't. I mean, we have a Columbia rep, and he's actually great, but this might have come out too early last year for us for it to be on our radar.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, we didn't open until December, so I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds intriguing. So the comparisons on our why this book should win. The comparisons are to Thomas Bernhard or more so Pierre Goetat. Those are two good names, but who knows what that all means. But it does seem like a little bit edgier and more like a type of historical fiction that's not really historical fiction.
Right. I can't even find it yet. Anyway,
Anyway,
so
so that's that.
we've got 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, 16 days. So people can start
And
speculating and fighting soon.
so we both mentioned that it was a little surprising that Fever Dream wasn't on here.
Yeah.
Any others?
I was just gonna look up and see like what the long list was because I don't remember who else was on there. To see for fiction, um, Ebola 76.
As the person who wrote the Why This Book Should Win, for that book, I really love that book, and I love books like that. Have you read it yet?
No, we don't have that one in the office. We did send it out and got it reviewed, I believe.
It's really fun and really interesting. I could understand why it might not make a list like this. If
Yeah.
you were really going to focus in on the translation, I suppose, it might not seem like it's doing all that special.
Oh, okay.
It's
Fair
not
enough.
one of those kind of books. It's a very good book and a very important sort of like documentary sort of thing about the time and place. But I don't know that it's, you know, the most well written and, thus best translation. Not because of the translation, but because of the book itself.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Go.
really liked it. You'll like it if you read it. Just give it, whatever, 8 hours and you'll be done.
Yeah, that one is one I'm really looking forward to. Gachar Gochar, I was surprised too. So I thought that would make it. Yeah,
Um, Empty Set?
it's
Any,
not.
any,
That's this year. That wouldn't
that's
be
this year.
eligible. I don't know about that book, man. I like that book, but I also think that it's a little thin and like a little precious at times. But that
I
one
definitely
for
agree.
next year should be definitely be a long listed title.
Yeah.
The two other, but there's Fever Dream we mentioned, but there's also shoot, where did it go? The Iliac Crest.
Oh, yeah. Emma asked me about that yesterday because she's reading it now for our book club.
Oh, cool. I've read
Um,
part of that and I really liked it, but it's so short.
yeah. But it was on the long list
Yeah, it was on the long list. And then the other one, I don't know if this is surprising or not, but Beyond the Rice Fields was on the long list too.
and didn't make the short
Didn't
list.
make the short list. There's no archipelago book on here on the short list.
That seems crazy.
They had two books on the long list: Incest, and what's the other one? Where is it? For Isabel. I read a bunch of For Isabel, and I wasn't too keen on that one either, so I'm not super surprised about that. But they usually do have something in the running. I mean, next year they get book 6 of Knausgaard.
Oh God.
Every person who's a judge for the next year's Best Translated Book Award has to read an 1,100-page book.
Or not. We can just Mike Orth yell at everyone again.
I don't the book that you're referring to, whatever. What was it called?
Bottoms.
I was gonna say it's Craldo's Dream, which is so wrong. Bottom's Dream, yeah, by Arno Schmidt. The like whatever it is, was it like 1,400 pages? But they're all oversized and whatever. I don't know if anyone's finished that yet, like in the world. Because what
Was one doing like I'm not even gonna sort of acknowledge this person's foibles here, but I feel like somebody was doing like a blog post.
Yep. I think
For everything they were reading or something.
Yeah, and I think they could read like a page a day, and they're writing about it. And I checked not that long ago because I remembered this, and I was like, I wonder. And they weren't done with the book yet. And I can't imagine I mean, that's such a crazy one-off thing to have come out or anything. But like, if the person who's like dedicated to doing it isn't able to finish it, I don't know how many casual anyone else has finished it in full.
Right.
Much less understood most of it. So
Right.
yeah. Anyways, I guess we can put that down. And back in a couple weeks with the winner. Maybe we could get like the translator or the author to come on and talk to us too.
Depending on who it is, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only one author that's not alive on this list. And all the translators I think I know. For the most part. Yeah. But anyways, other things I want to talk about. Did you read this? Well, okay, let's do the Nobel Prize. Speaking of prizes, because that's a good segue. So no Nobel Prize this year.
Yeah. All right. So I'm reading. Everything I'm going to reference here and quote is clearly our trusted Nobel Prize correspondent for the New Republic, Alex Shepard, who sort of sums it all up in a little post, as he does. And all right. So first things first. Yes, no prize this year. They are doing 2 next year. So it's happening. The prize is being considered, and I suppose they'll finalize it and choose one at some point after they quote unquote get their house in order, and then they'll do it again for 2019. So there'll be 2 in 2019, basically.
Yeah.
So for anyone who is somehow not familiar with this, they decided to do all this because the literature panel had a member's husband was accused of sexual assault by 18 women.
At a club that's funded by the Nobel Prize Committee in part.
Okay. So Jean-Claude Arnault, husband of member Katerina Frostenson.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing the Nobel Academy is doing their own investigation, blah, 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 blah. All of this sort of stuff. Look, I would love it if the Nobel Academy decided to disband, get rid of this member. It's weird that the guy's wife is the one who's forced to resign and all of that.
So here's the connection part: is that he not only
this is more important,
yeah.
Right? That it's not that he is accused of sexual assault;
right.
It's that he was accused of leaking information.
Right, and like when all the betting changed,
that's why they shut it down.
Yes,
The
Yeah.
sexual assault is irrelevant to the Nobel Academy.
Yeah, except insofar as that the Nobel Academy is giving money to that club that's called Forum, where this was taking place. So it's not like they're somewhat culpable in that financial way, I guess. I mean, it's not direct, but it's not a good look. But the yeah, that he's leaking and that she leaked to him, he leaked to others. You could do inside betting. So at the last day, right before it's announced, the odds always go up on like the winning candidate. For some reason, it was suspicious for a couple of years. It was strange that would happen, and this is probably why.
So they're just not having one.
Yep. And people
Do
had
any?
some hot fucking takes about this. Adam Kirsch really, really just goes to town about the Nobel Prize. But and if you haven't read it, his thing in the Atlantic is pretty funny. And he goes straight up with like, readers don't need the Nobel Prize in literature. And then he says, I'll give you two parts of this and something from a long time ago. Will a year without the Nobel deprive us of the chance to make the acquaintance of a writer we would love and admire? Here the answer is pretty clear no. For decades, the choices of the Swedish Academy have failed to provoke much interest from American publishers and readers. Then, in parentheses, this only seems fair since over the same period the Swedish Academy has resolutely ignored American literature. The last American writer to win the prize was Toni Morrison in 1993. No, Bob Dylan doesn't count. When was the last time you heard someone say they were reading J.M.G. Leclasia or Herta Mueller? Back when, though, I remembered him writing something about this before, and I was just able to find it. I was trying to find this the other day, and I couldn't do it. But back in 2005, is that 2000? No, 2008. There's no date on this. I think it was 2008. When Horace Engdahl was like, well, American literature won't win the Nobel Prize because they don't translate anything and they're not part of the world conversation, Adam Kirsch lost his mind and wrote an article for Slate, which he says, all these criticisms are, of course, true, but the real scandal of Engdahl's comments is not that they reveal the secret bias on the part of the Swedish Academy. It is that Engdahl made it official what has long been obvious to anyone paying attention. The Nobel Committee has no clue about American literature. America should respond not by imploring the committee for a fair hearing, but by seceding once and for all from the sham that the Nobel Prize for Literature has become. I'm pretty sure, yeah. He later on says he's not going to read anything until Philip Roth wins.
Jesus Christ. What's the point of all this?
I don't know.
You write Slate, that's your sort of MO, but God.
I love that, like, there's so many hot takes about this, and it's like, who really, like, they fall in this category, most of them fall in the category of like, well, people are giving the Nobel Prize too much credibility anyways because it's not really creating a fair canon, and they're leaving these people out, and it's insufficient, and all that's true, but who cares? Like, it's not like, it's how many people really, like, live or die by, like, what the Nobel Prize announcement's going to be that year. Like, it's a fun award that gets people a lot of money. People talk about it. Cool. There's other awards that people don't talk about because they don't sell as many books and they don't make as much money. Also cool, but they're just like, I don't know. There's so much reaction to this that it feels like the reaction is bigger than the prize itself.
Yes, I feel like that's kind of true at this point. This is all like it. Look, I've been selling books for a long time, at least at the stores I've worked at. This prize definitely sells books.
Yes.
It's two that does. This and the Pulitzer, the only one that actually sell books. Everything else, sorry, Whiting Awards, it's just not going to do anything. No one cares about it. No one's paying attention. These get like, this will be the second thing mentioned on NPR, period, the day it's announced. It's whatever the president did, and then X author won the Nobel Prize.
Yep.
It's a big fucking deal. So yes, of course it gets people reading. People are curious. They like being introduced to writers they haven't heard of. What is the fun in, like, look, I'm going to throw out the caveat that, look, if Thomas Pynchon had won the Nobel Prize in Literature in his lifetime, which I think we unfortunately have to agree he's not going to because it's not coming back around to the U.S. anytime soon.
Right.
And he'll probably pass away before it does. If he had won, I would be ecstatic for him and for the recognition that, I do think he's an amazing author, right? But
Yeah.
what's the fun, like Philip Roth winning to be like, yeah, really proud of that Philip Roth. Like, who cares? Like, why? What's the fun in somebody you've read all their books who's just sort of a male author, like not doing anything special? Where's the pride in that? I don't get it.
He's also you know what, the pride part of it, like the jingoistic part of it. Adam Kirsch's one becomes pretty quickly that his viewpoint seems to be twofold. One is the best American author, Philip Roth, deserves to win. Everything else is bullshit. And his second argument is that because this is giving us unmarketable authors, it's bad. That the only thing that matters is if the marketplace deems it worthy of sales, therefore it is good. We don't need the Nobel Prize to introduce us to these authors who do not sell, which I think is a really flawed viewpoint to have on this. Like, both of these things can exist. You can have, in his words, Haruki Murakami and Knausgaard and Ferrante and Bolaño and Sebald, who are like what Americans have found of international literature. We don't need the Nobel Prize. And you can have the Nobel Prize introducing Herta Mueller or Leclasio or whomever, Modiano, whatever, Mo Yan. That can also exist. Like, I don't know why it always seems to be like, well, that's dumb. Like, I think Adam Kirsch's arguments are dumb. Um,
He seems to be arguing from this point of view where he makes the assumption that your average reader is going to read, let's say, 10 books a year, just to make this easy. 9 of them will be versions of Philip Roth. 1 will be translated, and so they're allotting their time to translation to Murakami or whoever wins the Nobel Prize, right?
yep. Here's one of
And
his lines. Oh God.
it's like, so if it's a weird one, quote unquote, like, then you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah, exactly. And he says, if you drew a Venn diagram showing the winners of the Nobel Prize in one circle and the most influential and widely read 20th century writers in the other, their area of overlap would be surprisingly small. Yeah, because fucking J.K. Rowling hasn't won the Nobel Prize yet.
Right. I was going to say, like, I think that Venn diagram would be pretty spot on, no?
I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't win that you'd say are important. Proust, Joyce, Nabokov, blah, blah, Virginia Woolf. That's all fine. There's always those people who are going to exist. Like,
Right.
it's just 18 old dudes and women in a conference hall appointed for life picking an author.
Right. They
So
also have to be alive.
yeah, everything else that you attribute to them is like sort of a projection. And I think that
Right.
that's the part that gets interesting in reading these takes about it, is that it really is just a projection. Like, their statement, like their mandate is to find an idealist or something like that, like an idealistic representation of literature, which is a nonsense phrase. Like, that doesn't really mean things. But and they're just picking people, and you can sort of then read into the politics, and they have statements, but like the statements are always like, political double talk of sorts of why someone would win. You could basically use like you could run through into an algorithm all the other things that they've said and come up with the next one just by random word choice. So like all like the takes on like what they're trying to look for and why they're picking it, it's all like these weird projections of our stuff. And like a lot of the American writers that get pissed about it seem to be projecting this weird jingoistic thing about American literature needs to be dominant, otherwise it's bad. And if these authors that come over don't sell a lot of copies that win the Nobel Prize, even though they do sell a significant number of copies or justifiably large number, it's still bad because Americans should be the ones that are on top.
Yeah, it's very strange to think that way about writing, especially. It seems like this should be a realm where that sort of pride or whatever doesn't exist. But I guess for some people, I don't know.
Yeah, man, it gets people talking about books for a week.
Right.
Cool.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, even if
Especially,
you hate it. Yeah, and I don't know why people complain about that. So, anyways, did you read this New York Times op-ed on why we should save Barnes and Noble?
I did. And then I got to the last paragraph and I was like, oh God, what happened?
there's, there's a lot of stuff that is weird in here. Like, I don't know who fact checks these op-eds or like maybe give some pushback as to like the logic within them, because there's a few weird points in here. The first one that I thought was funny though is where God, where is it? The first time Oren Teicher is referred to, they refer to him as running where are you? Okay, yeah. It says Amazon isn't primarily concerned about books these days. Oren Teicher, who runs an association of independent bookstores, told me.
And
I just think that's so funny. It's like he's got a little club in like upstate New York with like 6 independent bookstores that are part of an association.
right.
But like there's so many things. Like the artificially low prices have created a raft of problems. Fewer books are commercially viable. Publishers are focusing on big name writers. The number of professional authors has declined. I don't know how many of those things are actually pieced together in a logical way or are absolutely true.
The one that the number of professional authors has declined seems just wildly untrue.
That's yes, yeah. And
I wonder if, I mean, he doesn't explain this, and whatever, this is a op-ed, so maybe he doesn't have to, but maybe he means that people who are able to make a living as an author.
Right. I don't know how many but what percentage is that? I mean, has the number changed or has the percentage just gone down?
See, these would be facts. And we don't have any of those in here.
And publishers focusing on big name writers has always been the case. I think
Right,
that publishers are more likely to focus on like throwing a bunch of shit at the wall for cheap amounts because you're in an economic environment where you can like undercut advances based on like the perception of the marketplace and throw a bunch of shit at the wall and hope that one of them takes off and then you make a lot more money than paying the big advances to Stephen King. For like there's a reason that you do that because you got a you know exactly how many sales you're going to have. But like if you could be like, oh yeah, the marketplace is all fucked. Amazon's ruined everything. Like we can't offer $100,000 advances anymore. Everything's going to be $10,000. And you sign on a bunch of young authors and one of them sells a shitload of copies. Like you made way more money off of that.
Right.
And then there's one more. Well, go on.
He also alleges the disappearance of Borders deprived dozens of communities of their only physical bookstore and led to a drop in book sales that looks permanent. I don't know that those two things are related.
I don't think they're related. And like the book sales, whenever you look back at it, like the numbers are always like really muddled because I mean, there's probably like a good way to get these stats that makes more sense, but frequently they're done as a year-to-year comparison, and that doesn't seem like a logical thing to me because of the fluctuation of like if Harry Potter comes out in August of 2015. Then August of 2016 is down considerably. And then you can be like, even like 2016 is down compared to 2015, but you had an outlier within that. Like if you did it more as like a rolling average over time and did it not by, I mean, I don't know how you want to do it. Because if you do it by dollars or units, it seems like units are frequently going up and dollars are staying the same because people are buying $2 ebooks or whatever. But like there still is a shitload of books being sold. And a lot of money being generated out of that, and I don't know that it has gone down, but like I think there's more that I don't think you can just say that in like this crass way without getting into the nuances of it. More people, more books are getting in the hands of more people because of Amazon's low prices, but they're not generating as much revenue for publishers. That's something that to unpack, not just be like because of Borders, like book sales drops are permanent.
Right. Yeah.
And then the best one is the last one. And he says, oh, and now prices may be rising. Last month, Amazon increased the annual cost of its membership program, Prime, by 20% to $119. The fuck does that have to do with any of the rest of this article?
Right. Prime is, I mean, as far as I can tell, basically a way to get free shipping.
Free shipping and you get all the videos.
It has nothing to do with, it's not book specific.
Nope. It has nothing to do with them raising prices on books. It has to do with the cost of like how much it costs them to ship stuff over like second day to God knows how many millions of people on a semi-regular basis. Like
right.
This guy is the fucking economics writer for the paper. This seems weird.
We just spent some time talking about monopolies and the way the federal government has sort of stopped caring about monopolies and almost encouraging them to some degree, which is all true.
Yes,
I do support fewer monopolies of every kind, not just the Amazon sort of thing. Unfortunately, I don't think Amazon has what you would consider a monopoly.
No.
Not in the traditional sense of, Standard Oil or whatever. So, I don't know what can be legally, done to start dismantling Amazon's control over the consumer marketplace.
I mean, if
For all,
his, oh, sorry, go on.
no, not just for books, but for everything,
Y-
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like he's saying like they've broken up Standard Oil, AT&T, whatever, and had regulations against monopolies or companies that got to be too big, so to speak. And obviously that hasn't happened as much recently with banks and whatnot. But wouldn't it be like I feel like my I don't know anything about politics, but I would say I'd rather that the government did more for workers' rights and for getting higher wages for workers rather than trying to curtail these companies. Because every time they try and curtail these sort of companies, there's some sort of weird side effect happens. Like if you start to like overly tax Amazon or try and break them down, they'll just move a lot of stuff offshore or out of the country and somehow get around that. There's always ways to get around shit. If you're like a giant at this point in time, if you're a giant company with a lot of lawyers, you find ways to work around it. But the workers keep getting fucked in all instances here. And that would seem to be the one that I'd rather the government focused on that.
yeah, there's so many reasons to hate Amazon, but workers' rights is definitely a big one. That, yeah, they're just going to end up, well, I don't know. You're talking about how they could move offshore. They can't really because of these fulfillment centers. So
They,
they're for good. It's just how does the government sort of make sure that workers' rights are respected? And unfortunately, I don't know that they're ever going to do that in a widespread way ever again. Like the age of the union is sort of dying, if not already dead, and so I just don't see it coming back, unfortunately.
yeah, I'm not talking about the fulfillment center part so much as the trying to get them to pay corporate tax
Right.
part.
Yeah, they'll just move, to where Panama or wherever else these companies go.
And that's what like when I was in business school, that was encouraged. Like we had a whole class on ethics in which it was like the big speech was like it's your goal, it's your mandate if you're in charge as CEO of a corporation to pay zero tax if at all possible because you need to
Right.
maximize your profits. Like that is number one, unquestioned. So like if anytime you try and curtail profits, they have to figure out a way to like get around that.
Right. That's the goal of a corporation is not to be a friendly club, or a do-gooding sort of organization. It's not that they don't occasionally donate time and money to charitable causes. It's just their primary goal is to make money for the people who run the company.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
Why we should expect them to do anything, good for their employees is, insane.
There's always this problem, and like I always come off, I think, as the Amazon the like defender or like sympathist, to which some degree I am, not entirely or whatever. I think it's complicated, but I love like the thing of always being like, well, their books are cheap, and therefore it's destroying everything by selling cheap books to people, which is a really hard argument, I think, to like really defend without getting into like a lot of specifics and like a lot of tertiary effects on like the economics of the whole ecosystem. But there's always like cheap books. Fuck it, man. They're ruining everything. We want to make sure that people have to pay more because people are dying to get their hands on books these days.
Right. I don't know. My argument is always if you value something, you should pay for it, and there's a lot of people involved in making a book who deserve to, make that money. Most of the time, Amazon is the one eating the
Yep.
discount, and so that's on them if they want to do that. They do
Yep.
sort of force down discounts that they pay publishers, but there are laws, and this is a place where, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, laws do help, is that they can't demand too low of a discount, or if
Yeah.
they do, it has to be offered to other retailers as well. So,
Yeah. And it would at some point it would break the system entirely. But like if you value something, you want to buy a book. If I value whatever, I can come buy it from your store at full price. But I'm in a different situation than like a student or someone like in a much less financially sound position that might want to read a book by Philip K. Dick, and the difference between paying $15 and $9 is significant to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what used bookstores are for too. You know,
Yeah.
they serve a purpose. Absolutely.
Yep. And
Uh,
libraries.
I will say, like, if the whole point of this was, you know, it would be bad if Barnes and Noble was gone, I agree with that. Um, I don't think that the government should step in and save them
No.
per se. Like, if they're running a bad business because they ignored so many ways that the market was changing over the years and like badly ignored these things for so long, that's on them. I don't think the government should waste its money helping these people.
No. God, no. Do you really think of it? Because when Borders went under, this is the discussion, and there's a lot of theory at the time that because of Borders going under, there would be a surge in independent bookstores a few years later, which has been the case. Like, would not something fill in?
Something something would fill in if that community felt the need, right? That's the answer. I'm sure some of these communities with these giant Barnes and Nobles still around would probably not miss it, and nobody in the community would feel the need to open their own store. And then others, it would happen because they needed it, because they wanted it, because they missed it, right? I mean, that's the way these things would go. I think a lot of them would be replaced, though. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think they'd be replaced by something that wasn't quite so dull.
I was going to say vanilla. Yeah.
I don't care about supporting Barnes and Noble, to be honest. I don't care if it's there or not there. Like, I'm more passive towards Barnes and Noble than, or passive is the wrong word. More disdain. I don't go into our Barnes and Noble here at all. That's the only bookstore we have. And I do not go there. Like, I don't like it. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think they have good books. I think that they're poorly run and boring. I don't know. If they were gone, I wouldn't care at all. That's a horrible thing to say because everyone in the industry is like championing the Barnes and Noble thing right now. But like, I honestly don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they exist. I like that people um, are reminded that books can be sold in a store and you can put your hands on them and look at them before just buying them on Amazon.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I'm not gonna lose sleep if they go out of business. That's for sure.
I mean, where am I going to get the next volume of the Expanse series if they don't exist?
Wish I knew what you were talking about.
that's
Look at
that's an in joke for a few other people would get that, but yeah, some sci-fi series. But that's all they have. It's just that I don't know. You should go through our big Barnes and Noble sometime. You'd be just dismayed. There's more space given over to CDs and DVDs than there are to like all independent publishers combined.
I can't believe they're still selling CDs and DVDs.
Yeah, oh yeah. And like I actually saw someone that I played soccer with and they're buying a CD for Christmas for like their girlfriend. It's like the fuck world are we in?
What?
Like
What?
how do you what yeah, what? And it was like Adele. Like I don't even it's like what? Well, this is a thing that happens apparently. So yeah, I guess Barnes and Noble needs to survive because people need to buy Adele CDs sometimes for their loved ones. I don't know, man. Ugh. Anyways, is there anything else you wanted to? Oh, are you going to Book Expo?
I am. I'm in town for 2 days. I keep getting. Oh, we should talk about this very quickly. I keep getting these emails from both publishing people, um, like our rep from Random House or whatever, and then from the ABA, who is the little association of book clubs that Orin Tetra runs, that puts on Book Expo. It's so hard for me not to say BEA, by the way, to because they've reimagined the way they do things. They're now. It seems like they're trying to get rid of all the marketing marketing department employees that formerly sort of took over the entire floor for all of the major houses
Uh-huh.
and are doing. It seems like they're encouraging editors to come.
Well, they have a couple hours with
Right? They have
editors.
like, yeah, there's 3 hours one day, 3 hours the next day, where it's like,
Yeah.
all the editors come uptown and, or I guess just walk west,
Do you want to take a
and
guess as how many have signed up?
no idea.
Just take a wild guess. Nope.
I have such a hard time imagining the editors I used to work with at like Penguin going to this thing.
Yeah, 40 publishers have signed up with a total of 100 editors.
Yeah, I mean, they're really trying to connect. Somebody is telling people they need to connect with booksellers again. And that's a yes, I agree with this.
Yeah,
Just I still don't know that the floor of the Javits Center is the best place to do that.
I agree.
But then I also get these emails. So like, yeah, my Random House rep tells me that, hey, this is happening if you want to go meet X editor from wherever, right? This is where, the Random House reps editors will be specifically during this time. And then I get the email from Oren Teicher explaining all of this all over again. And oh, they've got education sort of panels for booksellers as well. And then I get another email from the new president. President, is that the right term? Of the ABA from the bookseller side, who is now Robert Sindelier from Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
And so he talks about how he's excited that, Book Expo is becoming this thing again, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard for me to remember a time when Book Expo really was
I
about.
loved I loved it when I first started in like 2002 to 2007 ish. I loved it. It was
So I
super
started going
fun.
in 2005, and yeah, I guess those first few years I went were pretty great. But it was also young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, so
It
I
was
don't
it
know.
was it was it, there were so many people there. I think it was just I think there's something that if you can create an environment in which a shitload of people show up, all the rest of it sort of figures itself out. Like there's a lot of like once there's not enough people, once that critical mass has fallen away, like which has happened with Book Expo BA, whatever it's called, the critical mass devolved quickly. Like the people who are into books or booksellers or publishers became a lot of like those gift book people, the people selling glasses, the self-published authors, the like sidelines item stuff, which they're really doubling down on this year with Book Expo. But all that stuff, which made it like this the of fragmentation very clear that like when there's so many book people there, everyone is a person of different varieties, but was somehow connected. And then once that fell apart, and it was like, oh, I don't really care about books so much. I care about like this optical scanner for libraries. That you started to raise questions about like what is the value of being here? We're spending a lot of money and what are we getting out of it? But if you get a fucking ton of people together, that problem goes away, I think. Because people find that there's something morale boosting that like there's business that gets done that doesn't seem obvious and easily quantifiable going into it. If there's just a lot of people there and you have a lot of interactions. And that would be great. If whatever it takes to make that happen again, that just having that vibe is, I think, positive for the industry because the industry is really already like pretty neurotic and anxious.
Right. I mean, what you're describing in some ways is Winter Institute,
Except
right?
this was so much bigger than that.
Which was so much bigger. The thing is, Winter Institute moves. They
Yeah,
limit the number of people that can go, and so yes, you're not going to get the critical mass because they do limit it, because they do it at a smaller place. They're doing it in like hotel lobbies, basically, in different cities, which are more affordable. I mean, a
yeah.
lot of booksellers I know, even though now it's if you're an ABA member, it's free to go to Book Expo,
Hmm.
which okay, fine, that's great to save a couple $100, but the cost of going and
Yeah.
staying in New York for 3 days is prohibitive
Oh yeah.
to most booksellers, right? If they don't live within,
For
train
sure.
distance of New York City.
Yep.
So how do they overcome that hurdle? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, it used to be that there's the reason that they did was that the discounts on backlist and the direct ordering was still part of the industry, and that's not really part of the industry anymore. So like
Right.
that incentive is gone. So yeah, I don't know how you overcome that. I am curious to see how Winter Institute what their new pricing scheme is that they're coming out with this summer because I think it's going to be real steep. I think it's going to reestablish the line between the haves and have-nots that can go to Winter Institute.
It was
I
already
fear
hot.
that it was already impossible, but like we were like, we'll do it. Fuck it, let's just do it. go for it. And they're like, nope, we're changing all the pricing and all the tiers of sponsorship. We'll let you know this summer.
I didn't know that that was happening since I'm no longer at New Directions. You'll have to share that with me when you get it.
I will. I will. I bet you they don't announce it until after VA because they'll have the meeting there to finalize everything.
Oh, the like final board
Yeah.
approval sort of
Yeah.
thing.
That's my guess. Yeah.
Anyway, you started by asking me if I will be there. I will be there. I have added the BTPA thing to my
Solid.
calendar, so I will be there. I don't know that I'll actually go to the Javits Center. I'm debating.
I might steal your badge at some point to go in because I didn't. Well, maybe I have. Maybe I can get in. I have a badge to the New York Rights Fair, I assume. So, and they're the same. So, good enough. I never register for things anymore. I'm so bad at this. Like, the most fundamental thing you're supposed to do, I just always screw it up. I just think like, oh yeah, it's there. You can just go.
Yeah, I don't think it's that easy.
Nope.
But
Definitely not. Never is. But they also, one thing that I wanted to get your take on is this. Where did it go? So they have a lot more. Oh, here it is. So they have more author stages because that's good, I guess. And then more sidelines offerings, including adding cafe products. We want Book Expo to be a one-stop shop for booksellers. Several ads, which Ed Several is the head of it now, and I love that that's his name. That's just perfect because it has so many non sequiturs in this article. But this is great. Another new initiative is the Vital Bookstore, an interactive exhibit. The bookstore will feature 4 life-size walk-through models: a cafe, a store with modern decor and sideline merchandising strategies, a traditional store with a classic library look and shelving designs, and a children's store with special features to engage young readers. Visitors can explore the store in 3 ways. They can take a self-guided tour, take a small group 8 to 10 people guided tour, or join one of the numerous 45-minute dialogue sessions with bookstore owners and thought leaders on a variety of topics. The store will be open from May 31st to June 3rd to publishers, booksellers, and librarians.
wait, this is in the Javits Center?
I guess so.
I'm definitely going to have to find this.
I'm curious to see what... I'm confused by like a cafe and a store with modern decor and sideline merchandising strategies as being, I believe, those are 2 separate things.
This makes it sound like bookstores are a concept car. I don't. Sounds very strange.
It's like one of those like futuristic at an auto show, like one of those futuristic cars where like you lay down in front or whatever. Like this is what your bookstore's going to look like in 2022.
You pick up a book, it talks to you with a British accent.
It's self-reading. It's our new innovation. Yeah, God, I don't know. I'm curious to see what that is.
Which, by the way, I know this sounds. Here's an idea. Just run with this. Books that are actually audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
So like you get to carry around an actual book with pages and whatever, but like you open it and it just connects to your headphones and starts the audio. You don't actually have to read.
That exists.
Does it?
Yeah, and you can so through Audible, if you have the ebook version and the Audible version, they will sync. So you can be looking at the Kindle version and it'll turn the pages as you're listening to it.
That's weird. But no physical
Not
version.
a physical book, no. But you could do that.
Right. That'd be an interesting gimmick.
Wait.
I want nothing to do with this, but somebody should do this.
It is. I mean, there's something like for some people to that concept of being able to switch between reading and listening.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Anyways, is there anything else you wanted to say? Like, I guess say that Peter Mayer died, which is sad.
Yes, it is sad. He did a lot of good things for the publishing industry over the years.
Yeah, he was quite a figure. I had a really nice like dinner kind of thing after a party at the LA Book BEA. The last time I was in LA was probably like 2008 or 2009 because it was after Open Letter had started, and we knew we were doing some books like the 2 Jan Scherstad books that Peter didn't do. Like he did the first book of the trilogy, and we did books 2 and 3. And so after we met up at a party at the Hotel Marmont, where some woman OD'd and Pee Wee Herman was there. and we went to like a taco place across the street, and it was awesome. Like I really loved talking to him. He used to bum cigarettes off me back in the day a lot. Like I always thought he was just a nice guy, very smart guy, and just an interesting character.
Yeah, I've had two of my closest friends who, both worked for Overlook, was their first publishing job. And
Man,
it was definitely for a certain number of years, like that was a lot of people's entryway into publishing was being like the receptionist, for lack of a better term, and like administrative assistant for Overlook, which basically meant you were Peter's assistant,
yeah.
which entailed a number of different jobs. But it was also interesting because he had this way of just like trusting people to like do things, right? Like my friend
Right.
David became a book designer after being an editor. It was because when he worked for Peter, like one day he was just like, "Hey, we need a cover for this book. I totally forgot we were publishing it. It needs a cover in 3 days. David, give it a try." Like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so he was very good at like just letting people like try things and learn how to do things on their own, and like gave them the space to do that as a way of, helping them learn how publishing works.
That's super cool. There's not so many old school people like that left.
Right. People who chain smoked at their desk.
Against all legal rules. Just did not care. I remember when he fell asleep on a panel that I was watching too. That was a good one.
That seems about right.
That seemed, yeah. It was well, and Solange was talking about
Oh,
Americans not paying attention to French publishing and French agents.
oh God. Peter, I feel like we should probably mention that Peter was largely involved in the publication of the
Satanic
Satanic
verses.
Verses,
Yep.
um, which, I mean, we could spend a long time talking about it, but that was an incredible effort by a number of publishers who felt that the book was important and tried to mitigate, employee danger,
Right.
basically by doing a sort of like a one-time consortium of publishers put out an edition. I still have one actually.
Oh, do
Uh,
you? Wow.
yeah, of the book that bears like a one-time publisher sort of logo, so that whoever whatever would want to do harm to the publisher in English, in America, um, wouldn't know which offices to go to and all of that sort of thing. It was a way of like obfuscating who was actually doing it.
Yeah.
Years later, of course, we know that Peter Mayer was heavily involved in that and played an important role.
That's super important. He's great. Great man. Any other last thoughts? Any rants or raves or books that you want to recommend?
Well, we were texting, little inside look here at our lives and how sad they might be sometimes. We were texting late last night about the new Manchette that's out from New York Review of Books, which we're both reading and both loving and both appreciating Doug Headline, who is Manchette's son, the introduction to it and describing where the book falls in his sort of collection of works and the sort of what he saw for it,
Yep.
Manchette, before he died, and how it all sort of fits together.
I really like it. You said it's like different and than his other books, unexpected. I only read the first three chapters, but like the opening chapter seemed like, I mean, like the other ones that I've read. But that's all. I've only read like 30 pages.
I mean, it's definitely similar in certain ways, but I think, I mean, at least according to this intro, I assume there's a surface level in which it's very much the same way, and then there's another level in which I think it's meant to be much more expansive,
Yeah,
and so you
yeah.
can see that as well.
This is one time that I highly recommend reading the introduction because it doesn't. It's not like one of these that heavily depends upon like explaining the plot and then giving like some cool sort of observation about it that both bolsters like your interest in the book and the intro writer's reputation. But it's more like what that Manchette had like run through all of his noir ideas and was like not writing. Or was like writing a ton of shit, but like he's like none of it's good. I didn't understand that. Like I had turned the page on how I was doing these noir books, and then came up with this new sort of concept and passed away before he could finish it. And I thought that was really cool. But a question I had for you is, do you have, so he wrote like, was it like 5,000 pages of like reviews and journal entries and stuff about other noir writers? Has any of that been translated?
No, okay. So in French there are, I think it's 2 volumes of his personal journals,
Okay.
which are each like 1,000 pages each.
Shit.
Which I've read maybe a few hundred pages of the first one in French, and it's amazing stuff. Like it's really, really fascinating stuff about him talking about partly like, working on his novels like in the background, but it's also just like everyday stuff. Like, oh, my wife and I are thinking of relocating to, wherever they summer. I can't remember where.
Right.
Like instead of staying in Paris, and then coming to the summer house, they think about relocating. And it's things like that, and like who his neighbors are and what they went out for dinner with the other friends and blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. And then like, oh, meeting with so and so from Canal Plus about a TV show, and God, those guys are such dickheads, and that sort of. It's just like fascinating look at like a person who's thinking about a lot of things. He also like does extensive like close readings of things, like
Right.
like he picks up Freud and talks about it for like 10 pages, right?
Yeah.
All of this stuff sort of mixed together. I think it's like just a fascinating look at like a fascinating person who wrote at a certain time and place, right?
Yeah.
I would love to translate it. I don't know who is ever going to take on something like that.
Would his son is Doug, right? Doug,
Yeah,
be able to like edit down like a sort of a mini
he and I have
version, like
talked about that
because
definitely, because I don't know that people want a close reading of Freud because it just quotes Freud a lot.
yeah.
So there's that kind of thing.
But his
But
essays on like some of these other like Ross McDonald and all those other like Chandler too, all those kind of essays on those people and his personal stuff would be fascinating.
I agree. I agree. I just don't know who would take on such a commitment.
New York
Um,
Review Books, come on, New York Review Books. We know you're listening. You've done his other books.
I should try to corner Edwin about this again.
Yeah,
Just see what. And the
yeah,
other person
Edwin.
is Donald, the translator,
Yeah, he's awesome.
who does not have time, obviously, to do this kind of thing because he's doing so many other things. But like he wants them translated as well. So
He's great. That would be. I think that would be really cool. Like I'm have a renewed interest in him by starting this book last night because it's just so it's such a good kind of tone and world to fall into.
yes,
It's
yeah.
nice.
And his journals are just like that.
It
It's
seems perfect.
fascinating. Yeah.
And goes along with I've been reading for this Irish trip, "Dead as Doornails" by Anthony Cronin. just like a sort of remembrance of like his life in Ireland as a young man, young writer, young editor, and hanging out with like Brendan Behan and Patrick Kavanagh and Flann O'Brien, and how like fucking crazy they all were, and like how drunk and filled with like random schemes and like libel lawsuits and various other things that went on in this like little part of Irish literary history. But it's really fun. Ross Ufberg recommended it to me from New Vessel when I was out visiting him, and it is pretty wild. Like these people lived crazy lives.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, very drunk. Most of the bars
Yes.
that they reference are still there. Because I've been looking, because I'm like, maybe I can go to like McDade's, and they like it shows. There's a McDade's that shows up, and I believe must be the same place. But that's where they would all like they'd hang out down there because they wouldn't the bartender wouldn't charge them all the time, and like there'd always be someone there who'd come in and like buy a drink for like the poor poet. Like, it seems super like a different world. I mean, there must be some part of this that still exists, but like a very different world where everyone who's a writer all hung out at the same bar getting blasted and telling terrible jokes.
Yes. Right. I mean, isn't so when are you going?
July 1st through the 10th, right
Okay.
after your wedding.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Be
so
fun.
it should be pretty fun. Though I'm probably going to have to give like 4 mini lectures, which is a little bit terrifying. But
Just get up there and be yourself. You'll be.
I think I'm gonna just I'm just gonna give them like I know about I can talk to you about the interior of the books. I don't really know like the history or the like where this connects to like what places, because I've not been here, but I can talk to you about like what makes Flann O'Brien funny.
Right.
Why is Ulysses good? I'm going to start from that. I'm going to start from that old LitHub article, 21 Reasons Why Ulysses is. What is it? It's like Ulysses, good or bad? Question mark. I'll start with that.
We almost went a whole episode without mentioning LitHub. Thanks.
I know. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's just such a perfect article for like this sort of thing. But yeah, no, they're cranking along. Anyways, I got nothing else. And
All right.
the book announcement just went live, so I will talk to you soon. Let's see what people have to say about the Best Translated Book Award.
All right. Sounds
Talk to you
good.
later. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.